I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, to train them is my course. I will travel across the land, searching far and wide. Teach Pokemon to understand the power that's inside Pokemon. Okay, so let's do an initial bit analysis, the first verse analysis of the highest grossing media franchise in the world, Pokemon. The power that's inside. Teach Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. Now, this is implying that a human being is necessary for a Pokemon's fulfillment in life. This is akin to saying an animal in our real world needs a human being to fulfill themselves to realize the power that's inside in real life. Now, there is also a physical, tangible aspect to this in the Pokemon world, which is the ball, the Pokeball, that most Pokemon are held within. Now, is this some energy orb that the Pokemon's vessel has transferred itself into? Or is it literally cramped in a ball like many artists have interpreted over the years? We've never seen the latter in the show, of course, but it's highly implied that that is not a comfortable living space, much less comfortable than a standard animal carrier, like cat or dog carrier, for instance. So let's continue on. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. It's you and me. I know it's my destiny. Pokemon, oh, you're my best friend. In a world we must defend. Highly militaristic aspect. The notion that this world needs to be defended. Living in the USA, this was often chided about, and obviously, this is club programming and total nonsense. So, heart so true, our courage will pull us through. You teach me and I'll teach you. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all, yeah. Okay, so gotta catch 'em all, of course. You're this, I guess, you're not a poacher, but you're this hunter, this gatherer, this collector. And you want to, I guess it depends on your role, but in this world, the main character, Ash Ketchum, he is a competitive Pokemon trainer, and that is considered to be a career worth taking on. Just the simple fighting of Pokemon. And yes, gotta catch them all. Gotta go all around the world and catch every single one. And this is a bit of a hoarder mentality. Now, aren't you satisfied with the animals in your life? There's no way you can have a good relationship with, what is it, 100, 151 of these guys? With 151 Pokemon. There's no way. I mean, you can, but it's such a ridiculous prospect, and yeah, there's a lot of strange programming when you see like an animal abused or attacked and then caught by a trainer, and so yeah, this is all in the initial lines of the Pokemon's on the initial um, foray into the franchise. So here we go. Every challenge along the way, with courage I will face. I will battle every day to claim my rightful place. Come with me, the time is right. There's no better team. Arm in arm, we'll win the fight. It's always been our dream. So it's, yeah, I mean, like any game, it's a game at heart. It's a game. I guess you could say it's a game. It's a whole franchise, right? It's a whole thing, but big aspect of it is the gaming aspect. So beating other opponents, it's just, yeah, it's not a good message really. It's competition. It's, yeah, we talked about it. So anyways, now into the video. I wanted to have a little foray into the video with the song that is etched into my mind. So here we have the initial 151 that were released in 1996 in Japan and then 98 in the USA. And in my neighborhood, most everybody that I knew was involved, like, looking at it, taking interest in it in some way. And yeah, for many reasons, it offered an escape to a pretty rough world of public indoctrination camp, imprisonment of the mind. And when you think about it, this and Tamagotchi played a big role in taking up a lot of the time that otherwise would have been spent perhaps learning how to garden or do something useful in life, learn how to use medicine and all these other, you know, more important things. But it offered an interesting perspective on a world, and this sort of this over the head view of a world like your own that you are experiencing likely as a young person, but with this interesting notion of animals, like the ones we care for, being fought regularly, and it's considered normal. So right away, the first one, this is significant to note. The first one, you have Bulbasaur, and right there, dinosaur connotations, and we know all about the dinosaurs and how they are fabricated. So propaganda right away, evolution propaganda, and we'll get on into all of this. Um, so I go into quite a few Pokemon in this video, but in this image I want to address how basically a lot of them, especially in the initial stretch, are really simple modifications to real world animals. For instance, Caterpie is a caterpillar, Metapod is a chrysalis, and Butterfree is the butterfly. And Ekans and Arbok are simply snakes, Arbok being a cobra, Ekans being a standard formed snake. And they just have their names backwards, but they're otherwise normal animals, and it's just a simple modification. And then you have, more violent things like tortoises with, guns, water guns. I mean, not to it is pretty neat. Blastoise is pretty cool, pretty interesting, cool looking dude. And then you have some weird ones, some creepy ones, and we want to get into those specifically because those are the ones that left me thinking weird thoughts and feeling a little creeped out. So yeah, let's continue on. So here we go. Yeah, my little guy loves to battle. We have dogfights in the basement on the Pokemon of Route 4. My pup was there last week. Tore the throat out of Puchietta. It was so adorable. So yeah, here you go. I looked up Pokemon dogfighting. This is what came up. It's not like I was the only one who had this thought. It's a really common trend of thought. It's because what this game really is, the essence of this world. It isn't like, even if you do have your 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 within this world, you have you have things that go on that are ostensibly more innocent than fighting, like breeding, and that obviously is a bit dodgy as well. Many aspects of it are a bit dodgy, but it's the essence of this world being fighting. I'm pretty sure every episode I ever saw involved in some format made it a bit of it just felt too much. It was like so heavy. And here you have it. Here you have the obvious connection people are going to make. So I don't condone dogfighting. I don't condone cockfighting. I think it's disgusting. I think these animals are not going to do these things on their own. And in some cases they do, but it's a quick thing, or it's for fun, and they don't take it to the level that these people would because they just want to see somebody get knocked out. Animals will usually run away before it gets to that stage. So yeah, pretty messed up mindset. And then here you have some other dude coming over, some other Pokemon trainer saying, "Oh, I don't participate in dogfighting. Me and my fluff ball just snuggle and play fetch all day." And then this notion that that's a bad thing. Like here you go, Pokemon, right? In the show and in the games, more often than not, when the Pokemon is depicted as being a attacked heavily by another Pokemon, it faints. It doesn't quite die. And for a Pokemon to die, it's usually like something that would kill a human being. And yeah, it's a more intense moment. But this is also saying that, in this world, you need to fight to survive. And not that you don't, this world is hectic and crazy, but not in this format. It's it's not the way. It's violent programming. It's the essence of what is wrong with television, how it portrays worlds that are excessively violent and more violent than our own, and what that does to people's mentalities and spiritualities. It wrecks them. So yeah, here, um, you're a trainer who has a um, pacifist dog that's very normal in real life. Like I think most dogs in real life are probably pacifists, but these little thoughts warm into people's heads. They might wonder what their sweet little Spot is, how they would fare against their neighbor's Dover, you know, and that's not a good thought. You shouldn't be injecting these thoughts into people's heads. So this is a very subliminal but in your face aspect of Pokemon. Okay, and then the notion of, being a good trainer and a bad trainer, right? So here we have one of the earlier episodes where I believe it starts with Ash and Brock and Misty walking through to, might have been, I don't know, the second gym. I don't recall exactly. And they find a Charmander on a rock, and they know it's they say hello to him, but they ask where his trainer is, and he kind of just seems lonely and doesn't answer them. And then they go by, and then they go into town, and um, the weather starts to shift. It rains, and they're worried about this Charmander. I think they're asking about him, and then and talking to people about him. And then this trainer comes up and just openly laughs about his Charmander, tells me left him behind, and then they interject and do the right thing, right? You can't leave this animal, like a Charmander, let's say it's a dog. You can't leave your dog behind, and it's just the evil thing to do. I mean, if it's a mutual thing, of course, but it's generally speaking not a nice thing to do. Um, so you have this Pokemon struggling for its life because it's a fire type in the rain, and the team interjects. So right, good on the team. You have this morality bit where it's good on the team, and then you have this douchebag who left him out there because he was too weak, and they interject, and it's just this notion that, like, making Pokemon seem like it's okay. I think where you have this character, perceived as like a regular jerk who doesn't train his Pokemon correctly nor well, whereas you have someone like Ash or Brock who, cares deeply for their Pokemon and would do anything for them and just wants to learn about them, and that kind of notion. But it's hidden behind all this farcical behavior of, making this, like, running around fighting animals is normal and okay. So here you have, this is the notion, like the whole autonomy thing is what it really comes down to with other animals and our relationship with them, I think, with Pokemon at its essence. So in Pokemon, most of them are captured in balls, but there are a few that aren't, that refuse the ball or just don't live in them. And it's interesting in that Ash's Pikachu and notably Team Rocket, which we'll get into, really messed up group there. Their Meowth also don't use balls. They don't live in balls. Um, and yeah, it's just strange that, like, certain Pokemon have other, like, better levels of sentience, and it's all drastically contrasted with our world, where, for instance, if you consider Pikachu to be like a more independent Pokemon than the ones that are captured in balls, it's a very easy thought to have, where he's like, the rest of them are just okay with it, or don't put up a fight, or just accept it. It's very strange. But yeah, you have that aspect in terms of animal autonomy there. And then, the next aspect is the breeding aspect. So in the show, you have Brock, who is the first a real big encounter Ash has, the gym leader. He his passion really lies in breeding Pokemon. He loves taking care of them and giving them food and making sure their recipes are delicious and sorts of things. But there's this notion of breeding where they don't get into it in the show, but yeah, like getting your, in this case, an Eevee and a Pikachu hybrid animals, and then yeah, just inducing it, like how our media does it with pandas, and pandas are a fake animal, drunk people in fursuits making fake babies, oftentimes, or animatronics. Yeah, you have Brock here, uh, just eugenics, you know? It's just treating people and treating animals like subservient beings when they're not, and forcing stuff that doesn't need to happen. So then you also have this like perversion aspect of it, where in the games, if I recall, and here it says that the female at the bottom here, the female Nidoran, like a poisonous rabbit dino thing with a horn. It's like a jackrabbit dino thing. Um, can mate the female can mate with the big male, but the same age, queen and king cannot breed. Like just weird stuff like that. They get in that kind of perverted aspect. I don't know if Charmander and Magikarp. That seems ridiculous. If this is really true, then this game is absolutely insane. It's just wild. But maybe that's bottom right, Pita Bear. Yeah, maybe it's just like an imprint kind of thing. But that is weird. Okay, and then this is a big aspect of why Pokemon is programming. It's one of, if not the biggest aspect, the notion of evolution, where in the game it's always talked about Pokemon evolving. On the cards, Pokemon evolving. They say it in the show. It's always the verbiage they use. They don't use growing. They don't use any other thing, because it's within one lifetime and it's really confusing. So here I'm giving you an example. So they call all this evolution, right? So you have Poliwag, Poliwhirl in the middle, Poliwrath at the end. So you have a tadpole that's gaining hands, gaining bigger hands, getting bigger, and then I think if you give the middle tadpole an item, or it's so ridiculous. Sometimes the tadpole can turn into a frog. Other times it just stays a tadpole with legs. It's weird. Um, so yeah, you can go into that frog. So it's this natural life cycle of a frog, going from a tadpole into a frog, gaining legs, and yeah, becoming a frog. It's just the same thing. It's not evolution. It's growth. It's you're not. I mean, you could call it evolution of oneself, but what they're selling is evolution, where we came from apes, dinosaurs existed. There's kind of this notion that there are animals like the dodo where they wouldn't survive, or even the koala. There's this weird notion that these silly clown animals um, had to evolve into what we see nowadays, with like things like coyotes and raccoons and how clever they are and whatnot. So on forward, yeah, they preach this aspect of evolution where you have a dinosaur like a T-Rex at the top, a big Free Martin T-Rex thing, um, slowly becoming more bird-like over time, and then eventually we have our modern birds. So what they can, I mean, I watched old media and shit. Like what they used to go through was, or what they used to show us was, okay, you have pterodactyls, you have flying avian dinosaurs, but then you also have regular birds existing in that time. Well, more often than not, you would hear a giant bird or see a bird, a regular bird. So you'd have birds that have been around forever, apparently, and then it's all just nonsense. But yeah, this whole evolution thing, it's ridiculous. It's just them having fun and probably taking a turkey and chicken and every bird they can and then studying the skeleton and just morphing it a little bit. They can get pretty creative with this stuff. So then you have the Darwin's Finch's evolution aspect, where over generations and different parts of the island, you have different finches that have beaks that cater to um, what's around, and this is an adaptation. It's not evolution. It's not going from goop or a lesser animal to a better one. It's just an adaptation. That would be what you would see. I mean, it's sad, but in the world, think about it. If you're a squirrel that loses a limb, you're less likely to collect as many nuts and survive over the winter than your peer. So in this case, let's say you're a finch and your beak doesn't develop, then you might not be as effective as as effective at surviving. But from what I've found in life is that most animals, outside of like rare situations or poor abuse, are in pretty good health despite our crazy pollutants in our world. So yeah, and they even say at the top here, this is like pushing evolution, adaptive radiation. That's literally it. It's they're saying it, but then they have this whole evolution story that is one of the biggest childhood brainwashes. Okay, so now you're jumping a little bit around here. Um, yeah. So the first film, which drew a lot of attention and is big in the Pokemon canon, they brought it back. They did a reboot, and it's about a largely about one of the main themes of it is this cat. This cat Pokemon is its DNA was collected. DNA is a funny thing. Was collected, and they were able to clone a new species from its DNA, souping up its genetics, thinking about this. This is very similar in my eyes to just all the genetic breeding we do. Think about the steroided out cows, the giant chickens we have nowadays, just the evil stuff people do, all of the eugenics that's going on. And this is some ultimate form of it where it's even stronger than its other form in many senses, and it has this kind of android vibe that is often present in a lot of Japanese media, especially, and media in general, where people growing in vats, clones, and you have this whole strange conviction from this character where it questions its living, questions what it is, and ultimately decides to destroy the world because it doesn't understand itself. It thinks it's an ultimate weapon, and it's sad, and but eventually he comes around, and we kind of have this acceptance of the way we've handled things with the eugenics and just let live. But yeah, cloning. How genuine is it? What do we know about it? This is big in the games. I think it's hinting at bigger secrets that deep eugenics programs, things like this are most likely out there in some form. Okay, so then yes, you have the Baphomet aspect. So in this picture, Jesse in the middle there of Team Rocket, the the nemesis of our main crew here, and annoyingly every episode, like just in a storytelling, story, just in terms of storytelling, Pokemon is so poorly written. I would mostly watch it just for all the fanfare, all not the fanfare, but all the interesting creatures. Pretty much that's why I watched it, and yeah, it was annoying to have battles in these similar arcs playing out every time. But yeah, in Pokemon, uh, the two on the right here are part of this crew, and Jesse in the middle often does dress up and drag as a man, and here we have James on the right, who's um, quote unquote male, and is sporting enormous fake titties, and this is something that was largely, I think, for ages like people ages 5 to 12. I think that was probably the main demographic of Pokemon. So to have giant titties in your face like that, that's a little crazy. That's hypersexualizing the children, and it's this inversion, freaky energy. So then the Team Rocket, right? The R, this notion that they chose the R purposefully, this big franchise they knew was going to take off, or maybe even the numbers are fudged and they want it to be big. R is 18. R is 6 plus 6 plus 6. It's the one letter that represents the demon beast. So read into that how much you want. Okay, and then continuing with the cross-dressing, you have Ash sporting eunuch-loving orange and his ruby red pedophile slippers. Look at Tom Hanks's Instagram, if I recall correctly. He has all these weird pictures of the red slippers and missing shoes, missing people, missing things, and it's just leading. It's like just so gross, predatory people. And then you have a free Martin here dressing in drag like Ash because it thinks thinks is cool, and putting the finger through the hole. Now, what hand sign that means, I don't know. I'm not in the club. It looks like a definite hand sign, very purposeful. But the red slippers again. But yeah, like Ash. Okay, so now back on some of the cards. So okay, so you have this game, this not this game, this game, yeah, and this entity, this vessel for creativity, and in the original 151, right? There's they picked this number out. I'm pretty sure in reading, I recall saying they picked this number out. They didn't want to make it too big, too small. You include a pile of goop, right? A pile of freaking goop. Instead of like a cool mystical creature, it's just, I mean, it's kind of comical. It's like this kind of like ridiculous, nonsensical thing where like a pile of goop evolves into a bigger pile of goop and can just be toxic pollution all over you. Um, but yeah, I have some funny stories with this one. When I was little, the local neighborhood bullies, this was a card that you could get in almost every other deck. It was such a common card to get, um, playing Pokemon. And one of my not so close friends that lived nearby, traded me wanted to trade me this for absolute, like a much rarer card. I forget exactly what it was. Might have been like a Blastoise or something. And yeah, just the gall to do something like that is very Daffodil energy. And yeah, you have coughing, skull and bones. Just like another weird, like, why is this included? It looks kind of strange, demonic. Just a strange pollutant, pollutant cloud creature. Um, and then, oh god, yes, this is the creepiest freaking Pokemon. Mr. Mime. What is this? It's like a Free Martin Robotoid with glued on hair, sporting these obnoxious cheeks and this ridiculous design, this jester-like design. It just looks so creepy. And the way it's depicted often in the show, it's like this middle-aged man. It's just so creepy. Um, and yeah, like look at that. That's not a far stretch from what this looks like. This is freaking gross. And yeah, it just reeks. A mime in general is a weird, like, it's just a strange craft. I mean, it kind of looks, it can be interesting, but yeah, this character, it freaked me out as a child. It was definitely one of the ones that made me stay up late at night. Not a fun character. And then what? Just you have more of this just really strange, dark, weird energy. Like, what even is this? Looks like some weird Adult Swim. It could be on Aqua Teen Hunger Force, just, or yeah, some ludicrous show. Um, and yeah, originally this character's Jinx is her name. Looks like some sort of witch-like character who would jinx you with its this, like, it just kind of like gives you like a kelpie, a what is it? Almost Medusa-esque. But yeah, this female that is going to seduce you, allure you, and what's the word? I don't know why I'm thinking, messing it up. A siren, and take you under. And originally, yes, she was blackface. Like, just imagine this, giant lips and just a very offensive meme. But then again, the whole black and white thing, we'll always know this, and as regular people, it's just obvious. The whole skin color bullshit, yeah, it is ridiculous. There's apricot people, there's umber people, there's every shade of the rainbow, and yeah, bullshit. So yeah, entries for Jinx. It seductively wiggles its hips as it walks. It can cause people to dance in unison with it. So yeah, seductress. Very strange for a young, again, 5 to 12 person to be. Okay, now we're getting into freaking. Ooh, this might be the worst. So just the way it's designed, hypnotism in the name. A lot of them are straightforward about what they are, and Pokemon in general, many of them are derived from yokai, which are Japanese demons. Generally speaking, mystical creatures, and often, yeah, connotated as demons. So hypnosis. This is based on a dream-eating creature. Um, oh, sorry. This is based on a dream-eating creature, I believe called Baku. And yeah, look at this. It is swinging in front of you, and it has this creepy backstory that comes from the fire red and leaf green version, where just the mention of Hypno will strike fear in any parent's heart. Tales of Hypno hypnotizing and kidnapping children run rampant. One particular story that made headlines was that of a young girl, Lostelle, so you have to go through this as a player, who was hypnotized by Hypno and taken to Berry Forest on Kin Island and the Sevi Islands, where the Pokemon proceeded to feast on her dreams. It took a daring young trainer to defeat the Hypno and rescue her. Luckily, Hypno only preys on dreams, so captors generally return physically unharmed. Their swinging pendulums cause drowsiness even in onlookers that have just awoken. The longer one stares at the mesmerizing oscillations, the longer the effects last. Hypno polish their pendulums constantly with their manes. So, pretty creepy. You have this, like, creepy hypnotist creature luring people into the woods and actively polishing its 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 token of its tool of this of utter mystification and ultimately killing or easily direct raping just some sort of pedophile, some sort of uh, stranger in the neighborhood vibe. And yeah, it goes back in the notion of it eating dreams. It's um, this aspect to the character that it is demonic and infects you and takes part of your brain. And yeah, why is this something that you can catch and use against other creatures and use the dream eating against, like, cause these Pokemon to go through all sorts of crazy, um, hellish experiences and laugh about it and try to actively defeat one another? It's it's strange that we did this and we played these games. And to this day, I'm befuddled, but it's just the entertainment, the pure entertainment value of it. It can be high, and it's messed up. And then I think this is considered by the Pokemon Company to be the most popular Pokemon, at least in the initial run, where it's based on a Japanese yokai called Jinmenju and Executor. So Executor. So, like, what? Why is this a concept that you want to be introducing into Executor, like with egg in the middle, is how they dress it up. But Executor, like someone who kills somebody, why are you doing this? This is for children. And the Jinmenju, in reading about it, is often uh, referenced as a tree that has this peach-like fruit on it with human-like faces. And the fruit is very, very succulent when it drops off the tree. And that's that. And I imagine they can infuse your dreams and you can communicate with the tree in some instances. But there's also this notion that it hypnotizes you, mystifies you, and eats you or causes you unwell. So yeah, an executor. So that very much pushing that notion with the double entendre here. And yeah, here's an interesting depiction. I mean, does that look like a friendly tree to you? I don't know. It's just kind of a strange thing for a child to be exposed to. But all this kind of stuff is normal around here. This one, oh my god. This one, you just know this is freaking weird. So the main way this animal in the show and whenever you see it interacts with creatures is, yeah, of course, using that giant tongue in front of its face to lick it. And there really aren't any animals in the animal kingdom that look like this. So this is kind of disturbing to have a giant tongue popping out like this. And yeah, I think a tongue is a sensitive organ. It's not something that people want to see exposed all the time. So it just gives people weird feelings. Like, people will often take a Pokemon, for instance, or any media piece that's a rough cartoon, and try to bring it into real life to make it seem more realistic in their mind. And this one's disgusting. Like, to make a lick a tongue seem realistic is gross. It's licking people. It's, you don't know what that tongue is licked. You don't know how good it is at cleansing itself. It's a scary looking creature, really, when you think about it. But again, painted in an innocent light, kind of like often has this kind of like stoic image. But in lore, I mean, look at this. Um, this is the monster who looks filth. In literature about yokai from the periods of the Showa, Heisei, and beyond, Akaname and Akanebori were interpreted the same way as above. These interpretations state that the Akaname is a yokai that lives in old bathhouses and dilapidated buildings, that would sneak into places at night when people are asleep, using its long tongue to lick the filth and grime sticking to bath places and bathtubs. It does not it does not do anything other than lick filth, but since yokai were considered unsettling to encounter, it is said that people worked hard to ensure that the bath places and bathtubs are washed clean, so that the Akaname wouldn't come. There were none who saw that the Akaname truly were, but since Aka can remind people of the color red, Aka in Japanese, they are said to have red faces or be entirely red. So look at tongue here, pretty, like that follows, and due to the double entendre pun aka, which can refer to both the filth, which is the yokai's essence, and to the color red, a modern artist tends to conventionally illustrate the akaname as being of red color. So yeah, you're catching a monster who licks filth and battling with a monster who licks filth. It's like learning that Santa is an anagram for Satan. It's just kind of this hidden little gross feeling about the reality we live in. So yeah, Pokemon has this. And okay, this is a big topic, and you can research this yourself. This is a really interesting read and just an interesting study into the psyche of this world and how it works in capitalism. Because if this is the highest grossing media franchise, you want to know how it came to be. And a big aspect of this world is the show. So Takeshi Shudo, as you see here, he is as I read, as these stories have been listed on YouTube and on publications, many, he was using tranquilizers and alcohol regularly when writing. I think it was the first 5 seasons of Pokemon, and he's since passed away. He wasn't very old when he was doing this, and it's because, what do you think? What are all these themes we're talking about? All this stuff that's put into this game, and that you explicitly exploit in these games. That's what I felt like was most direct when I was playing these games. For me, other people probably have different experiences, but as you can see, the show is even more is just as affecting, hypersexualizing and conveying these same aspects of eugenics and dogfighting and evolution and all this fake. It's just this big, uh, this this giant ugly buffet of distorted reality, and it reflects our reality with how creepy and diluted it is because of this often because of this vehicle of capitalism that we have to live under. And Takeshi Shudo, no wonder he was probably a decent writer to get this job. I mean, it's a big thing that's pushed by Japanese media, and I guarantee that the editors or the people that are imploring him what messages to send out are pressing him for all this, and it's just getting to him, and he feels like he needs to take these things to numb himself to the reality, and here it's all there, so you can read into this. Lugia is derived from one of his alcohol trips. One of the Pokemon is derived from one of his alcohol trips. This abyssal sea monster, and yeah, it's really sad when you dig into the real threads of what made this franchise a reality. And it's also it's one of those things with this world, and maybe this makes me sound lukewarm, but it's like I can still think of positive moments I've had with these games. Here, Satoshi Tajiri is pictured here, the creator of Pokemon. And I can picture moments I'll go into him in a minute. Moments I had with these games, where I felt like I was learning a lot. I mean, I learned many colors, just the words for them, and felt the vibes of the towns that they were in and different types of characters, and had good experiences and shared them with my friends. It was a fun experience a lot of the time, but it was when you step out and look at it and look how people are acting around it, and how it was often this competitive energy. So Satoshi Tajiri, I don't think necessarily intended for this, but maybe he did, and maybe he's just a figurehead, like I think so many people in the media are, to create this big thing. But the notion of bug collecting, right? This is how it all started. But to take bug collecting where many bugs don't really interact with each other much. See, ostensibly, ones will eat each other, but it's a kind of a straightforward thing. And bugs definitely don't behave like this, where they pit each other in battle until they faint and then just walk away. That's like how Pokemon is often depicted. And it's this exceedingly violent world. And yeah, the collecting of bugs is not like this at all. So I think these kind of thoughts and this kind of yeah, it is a little deranged perspective led to a situation like what I had. And again, it's another trading situation. So when I was young and my parents took me to silly, obvious cabal fast food restaurants, I mean, what isn't these days? But the really bad, like poison, toxic food restaurants. Burger King was the one, happened to be, where they were having Pokemon trading card events. And we went there and we had our little, Happy Meal, whatever Burger King's iteration of that is. And then um, we went around and like met random people and talked about their Pokemon cards. It's very much like the 90s version of what Pokemon Go was as a phenomenon way back when it all started. It was the cards. You have the cards. Are they holographics? And like, which ones do you have? I want to make my team all in order. I want to make my team um, as powerful as possible. You had different goals in mind, but yeah, the basic essence of this trading aspect was often how can you get a better deal, right? This is how this world works. It's like you should give an even deal and be good and genuine and to each other. But what I experienced was these two pimple-faced, rotund free martins that must have been in the 18 to 22-year-old age are at this event, and I have got to be 6 years old, 7 years old, and I walk over to them and I'm showing them my cards, and it's the same thing I experienced with the muck I talked about earlier, where they wanted to trade me like their holographic, or yeah, they wanted me to trade them my holographics for their diamonds and circles, and that was just a way of them saying, oh, either I don't want to trade with you, or yeah, let's gyp this guy because he's a I am 7 years old. You would think that they would do at least an even trade. How ridiculous and stunted do you have to be to try and gyp a 7-year-old? But this is this world. This is normal. So here you have another little Pokemon blip in really any media. Satoshi Tajiri's autism. I'm very skeptical of autism. That's another video. But yeah, this notion of this computer geek sort of um, highly fixated mindset, and it being this kind of outward thing when uh, it's probably just an invented disease like so many are. And yeah, like I said, he didn't intend for it, or like the intention of it being innocent bug collecting, or bug collecting in and of itself ought to be examined. Of course, you have the studies and but like vivisection and killing bugs for sport and weird things like that. I think you really got to examine how you're interacting with this world, and I think a big part of this lifetime is being generous to God's gift of nature and the natural world, because it is the main salvation we have from all of the chaos of uh, the electronic jungle, the Orange 33 Club paradigm that we find ourselves in. So yeah, bug catching. And is that all? Is all the slides I have for you guys today? But yeah, Pokemon, right? It's something that it pushes so many things that are intended to brainwash you and put you in a mindset that is lesser than what we are. We are God's creation, and for us to be in this, what Pokemon primarily feels like, if I'm going to express it in a succinct way, this dogfight. It's the essence of the problem. The way the world is framed around it is really unhealthy, and I think it causes people to like go out and get pit bulls and get breeds to fight for money, for entertainment, and it's just evil. It's evil, deep-seated, subliminal, thinly veiled subliminal programming, and we have to move away from this stuff. So I think in finding truth, you have to give up on the things of your past that don't serve you, or that in better vision you can see aren't good for you. And that's what repenting is. So even though things may be fun in some lights, looking at the bigger picture and seeing that it may have some serious repercussions to your mind. It may be programming, and you don't want to be like a psychological patient, um, psychologically distraught person to the way to the in the way that Takeshi Shudo was. Obviously, having to take painkillers and alcohol just to continue his script because it was so. I mean, frankly, just just like a very anti-love, very plastic and selfish world, and we have to change change our relationship with animals. And this is a game that signifies a lot of the problems that we have in how we engage with animals in our everyday. So yeah, deep, not interesting, whatever you guys think. But yeah, this is a deep dive into Pokemon, and let me know what you think. Um, and yeah, I apologize for stuttering or being slow at points. I haven't done this in a while, and I'm looking forward to continuing on and sharing more of the weird things that bite at me and bite at me and bite at me until I have to make a video about them. Also, if you are in this community and you enjoyed this video and you stayed here till the end of this video, like this content, then you can check out um, Snow Snow Globe Pedo Cult, and what else? His other channel, my man who I talk to weekly now, Nights of Shame, re-uploads before they're banned. Because we need more people talking about this stuff, and I mean it's good to make community. So hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and you consider the media deeply that you consume and why you're consuming it and what it actually has to say. Because a glossy, pretty friendship arc isn't enough. And in Pokemon, yeah, glossy friendship arc slash um, this notion of needing to find the best within each other through um, training and battling is I don't think it's the right message, and I think people ought to take a deeper dive when they consume media, especially if they consume media a lot. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Good night.